This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let's see if I can turn
set on. Okay, I just switched to my headset. Can you hear me?
Yep, well and clear.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Well, it looks like you guys are busy, and I think for the most part, pretty good work. We can kind of review what I went over and some of the things that I noted that I think are worth sharing. But let's see, we are, like I say, Dan should join us pretty soon. And I'm really looking for this to be the almost the final review before we sort of clean some stuff up. Hopefully most of it's just little things around the edges. Let's see, before we start though, let me see, wait a minute. Let me just share my screen. And all right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I can see it too.
Great. And there's Daniel Wilson. Good morning, Daniel. Okay, well, while we're waiting for Dan Shoemate, why don't you just kind of let's go around a little bit and share what you'd like in terms of your experience, what you learned, what you're still looking to, what you still need to learn, anything like that related to the recent experience of kind of building this thing out.
Hey, it's Dan Shoemate here. Can anybody hear me?
Oh, hey, Dan. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I've been on. It's just the audio wasn't working right for me, so I'm dialed in here.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. We've got, that must be you on the phone. So it looks like we have, as I mentioned, John Kassar is going to join us. He said he would. I don't know when he will join us, but I think, and then I'm assuming Victor will join, but well, good. So we got you, Dan, and we've got Robert, Daniel, and Sarita. Why don't we do this? Robert and Sarita have been busy, and Victor did some work as well over the weekend, and we have what we think is pretty close to hopefully what you're looking for, and maybe a few other things, a few other options that we thought might be useful in terms of what you're aiming to do. Why don't we just go through that? And before we do that though, Dan, I know you were going to kind of go through the sandbox version, which is really the pre-production version that is going to be in effect migrated into production as soon as you approve. And as soon as we're all satisfied that it's got what we need. But tell us what you found. Was there anything in particular that, as you kind of went through this, hopefully from the viewpoint of a first-time user, that we should know about?
Yeah, so, I mean, it all looks pretty simple and straightforward to me. My only questions that popped up were, let's see, I had a few notes on here. So when you're adding a contact, which is going to be an employer. So under employers, when I go to add a contact, it asks for if it's a primary contact. And it has a question mark there, primary contact, question mark. And it's not a yes or no there. So when you go to open that up, and I was seeing if it is yes or no, it basically is an open field to type in. So at that point, if you start typing, it'll start bringing up other contacts. So it's basically linking to another primary contact, I guess. I was just curious.
Do you want to show us? Because I'm looking at this, and in a quick create, I don't see where that is. Let me give you the screen.
Okay.
Hey John, just letting you know, John Kassar's on.
Hey John Kassar, good morning. Okay. Oop. I got to give this to Dan Shoemate. Okay, I don't actually see you on this. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm missing something here.
I'm not sure, because I had to switch over to my phone audio. I can. Let's see.
Okay, waiting for organizer. Can you make me? Who just asked that? There's no name here. It's just, can you make me presenter?
It might be me.
Okay, so waiting for name. Okay, I think I can just simply make you the presenter. Now I know that you are number 13 something, but I'll make you the presenter. And okay, you've got it.
All right, let's see. I'm not sure what.
There should be a little toggle there. A dialog box that asks you if you want to. There you go. Now I can see you.
Can you see the sandbox?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, so if I'm in contacts under employer, and I go to new, here where it asks primary contact.
Okay. All right.
So I was expecting that to be a yes or no, right? Because
right.
Yeah, this is Robert. So yeah, that should be a checkbox. So it should look exactly like hiring portal user. Not sure why that field looks like that. There could be multiple fields, but I can update that like right now, if need be. But yeah, it'll essentially just be a checkbox.
So you know, and there's a question really. There was really a question about whether or not you. For one thing, this assumes if you click on primary contact, I don't know if that would mean that it needs to be unique or exclusive, right? In other words, if it's the primary contact, only one primary contact per account, maybe,
that is
maybe
correct.
not.
Only one primary contact per account.
Well, yes, and so if that's the case, then you'd almost have to constrain. You'd have to sort of say, okay, show this contact on the account form as the primary contact. I'm not exactly
the easiest thing to do is if you look at the account form, and there's a field there for primary contact
form.
Right.
Yeah. So go to ABC Company, and if you'll notice, there's a primary contact field there. It's a lookup field. You just find.
Right. It's a lookup field, but John, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you designate from the contact field, if you click yes, primary contact, do we have enough? I mean, I'm sure there's intelligence in there that could say, oh, go ahead and just populate the account record or account record with that name as the primary contact. I don't know how to do that, and I'm just wondering if there would be some. You know,
I'd have to go back and look at a standard out-of-the-box system because this has been edited quite a bit. So I assume it's there as well, but it's going to be in the standard out-of-the-box system that I have to go back and look at.
Yeah. So here's my thought. The only reason I put it there is in case we can do this in a very straightforward way. Otherwise, what I would recommend is that because a primary contact is probably not going to change, just use the lookup field in the account record form, and voila, you've got it. You know, pretty much. You can change it.
Absolutely agreed.
Yeah, but otherwise, you're going to have some gaps and some overlaps, and you know, you unless we can figure out a way to make this determinative, right? And also say only one primary contact per account. You know, I think this is just going to be too confusing. It's not going to give you what you need.
Okay, yeah, because I just added this person as primary contact to ABC Company, and then they're also checked as primary contact for Adobe, who I added earlier. So, but there's still nothing. So I don't know if that's even necessary to have in here then at that point, or you know, I'm going to be the primary user for this, but there's going to be other people, especially on this end, using it. And the more stuff they can do to confuse themselves, the worse. That's my only.
Well, that's pretty much my main message to our team, is to say, look, let's start simple. Yes, because it's just you and us, we're offering some alternatives that you might want to implement at some point, but just really for the value of understanding where your value might be. But I think if anything, we want to make this an exercise in removing stuff rather than adding more.
Well, it would be nice if I could note primary, even if it said primary contact and it linked to accounts, and it could just say Adobe or wherever I linked, because I will at some point, I'm sure, be going into contacts, looking at all the contacts for a company, and it's nice for me to see, oh, this is the primary contact for Southwest Airlines. You know what I mean?
If you go, yes, for sure. Robert, I'm guessing Robert probably has already modified that by now. And if you refresh, you might see that it's, now is an on-off field.
Okay.
There you go.
Yep.
Huh?
Nice.
All right.
Perfect.
So, yeah, good.
And
okay. Thank you, Robert.
So are contacts generally contacts? Because when I go in here under veteran contacts and then I go to add one, it takes me right back up into here. So all the contacts are going under employers. So when I go to add a veteran contact, it's the same exact thing.
That is something that we still need to figure out how to do. Now you'll notice that the let's see, the contact type should be, the contact type should be up there in the header, but the contact type does not determine the form that you see yet. And that's, in fact, Robert has been building the consolidated form, which would allow us to restrict access to information based on the tabs. So it's a tabular kind of access
By the way,
form.
One thing you can do is, if you look at the top navigation bar, there's a plus sign on the black.
Up here?
Yep. Create a new, okay, so we do not have a contact quick create. For whatever reason, it's not activated. So we may need to have a contact quick create there.
Well, we do have, if you go from accounts, let's say accounts, and you create from accounts, go to an account, and then you go to the contacts tab in accounts. Go ahead and just go to ABC Company, and then go to contacts, and then go to that tab over on the right. It'll say new, add new contact. Now that does give you the quick create form there.
Okay.
Right. But again, like John says, I mean, there's no way to designate what kind of well, obviously, if you're creating an account under a contact under an account record, it's assumed to be obviously an employer contact. So
yeah, we should be able to write off the plus sign at the top, a quick create from the navigation bar at top, and then one of the fields on that quick create should be employer contact versus veteran contact.
Good.
Again,
Good
sure.
point. Robert, is that something?
Right there. Click contact. There it is. Sorry, I'm working from a Starbucks today, guys. So right here, on this, you should modify this quick create form to have the field of contact type, which you don't have now.
And this came up when I clicked from veteran contacts, but I think when I was in employer contacts, it did pop up underneath there. Okay, cool. And
so I'm saying
when
you need to modify the quick create form to have the field of contact type.
So here's another thing too, is that you can you can create it. Yeah, that's actually a good point, because even though the fields in quick create might not be different, right? You're looking for name, rank, and serial number for regardless. But I think Robert, if you can modify the quick create quick create contact, quick create candidate, right? And then that way.
Before we, definitely doable. So the same way we have two main forms, right? A candidate contact form and an employer contact form. We can do the same thing with quick create forms. Certainly doable. But I think there's an underlying issue that still needs to be addressed, and that I'm discussing it because it deals with the work I've been doing on trying to create a single form solution for multiple contact types. So the underlying issue is the contact type. If you go to read a specific contact, you can view that through any kind of form. So if there's a veteran contact that you click on, but you look at it through the employer contact form, it'd be difficult to really tell what type of contact that is. Now, we do have the contact type field to tell us that.
Right. We have in content. Now, Dan, click over on the right, that down arrow just to the right of your name. I should say contact type. Yeah, so go ahead and select any contact type. So now, okay, so I guess Dan, looks like Robert, you had changed the contact to veteran candidate, right? So, which is fine. But again, I just sort of wanted to keep things real spare here, and my guiding principle is, just keep labels down to the minimum necessary. You can always add help text to a context, but these guys are going to be using this so much that veteran candidate is almost
let me stop here for a second while you're here. I don't want you to bounce around. Right here, if you'll notice on the form in this first quadrant here, there is no field here for contact type. It's only in the header, okay? But depending upon how a screen is rendered, excuse the dog there in the background there, but depending upon how the screen is rendered, they may or may not see the field in the header. So I said this last week, and I'm gonna stick by it again. You need to have contact type somewhere in this first quadrant here.
Yeah, I did that. I had it there, but then there was make it look like the old one, and
it was
so that's doable.
Okay. Now, yeah, we can do that. I think basically anybody when they get created, that's when they get designated. I'm not sure that they would necessarily need to be changed a lot, but hopefully the form that shows up will be based on the contact type anyway. So you can always check and maybe toggle it, but I think for the users, it's not necessarily something that we want to take up a lot of real estate for if it's already kind of like obvious what kind of contact type it is or should be. That was my reasoning, right?
I understand the reasoning, but it's one field, and I understand you want to keep things at a minimum. But in the event that, as you brought this up, John, suppose they go from a contact type to a veteran contact, and now they happen to be working for an employer. There's no way a user could change it because it's not seen anywhere.
Well, there is just by going. I mean, we can always move the label so that it appears in the header. Right, so just move it over to the left, so that the owner is the one you have to kind of unveil. But they can change it. I mean, Dan, if you go to the right there, and you can always change that just by clicking. And in the veteran content, I'm sorry, over to the right of your name there, that down arrow, right? So it is, yeah, you can select it there, but then go ahead and click on veteran candidate. In the veteran candidate, it does actually show up in the header. For some reason, it's just a spacing thing. Change it to
that's my point, John. In the header, because of the resolution, sometimes it will or will not appear, which is why I'm saying it should absolutely be put in the first quadrant, depending upon the resolution of the user.
Right. So, but the number of the changing this is going to be very, very rare. Very rare.
Yeah, actually, John, to step in for a second, if I may, we so because there's because there's two forms, that field could be tied to the form, so the value is dependent upon which form you select, right? Instead of making veteran or employer contact an option, it's if you select employer contact form, that field's value will be employer contact.
Well, it should work the other way. You should designate the form. You should determine which form gets presented based on the contact type, not the other way around.
Okay, yeah, that's doable too. Just
because you're talking about the view. Like, for example, let's say this person, the new person, and this is where I think John may be right, that the new person gets hired by that company. Well, then that new person goes from a candidate type, contact type, to an employer contact type. And then you would want to change it. But Dan, do me a favor and go ahead and change this to over on the right there, that down arrow. Change it to the change it to veteran contact, and then save that. Oh, wait a minute, you basically don't have a name or anything else. You can't really save it. There's a couple of required fields there.
What do you?
But I just want to. So yeah, go ahead and.
You want it to be a candidate?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, right. You can't just. That's right. We can't change it we can't change the form based on make it a candidate. Yeah, contact the view. Make it a candidate view, or just go to any. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so you see up there up there in the header now, contact type does appear, but right, and you can just make it. Oh, I see. Yeah, just click right in that empty field, contact type. No, just click out of that. There you go, and then just make it a veteran candidate, right? So it does appear, and anyway, it's totally up to you. I mean, John has a point. I think though, given that the form should be all you need to know what kind of a type it is. Well, we'll just see. Dan, whatever you think is going to work better for you guys. Given what John has said, that's great.
I just think primarily the separation should be here, because I think when we do assign access, it's going to be limited to this side of, basically Carol's team will have this side. I'm not going to be messing around in here very, very often. And then this side is where I'm going to have access. So if I go to create a contact and it always defaults to this side, when they're creating contacts, they're not going to have access to it, right? Or how's that going?
Well, there you go. And I think, John, this is where we could really use your help in terms of so I think when you create a contact, by definition, it would almost always be an employer contact, right?
When I create it,
yes. When you create it, and you will be the owner, or one of your teammates will be the owner. So when one of you or your team creates a contact, that the default form should be an employer contact, right? I mean, that's just the default.
For me or my team, yes. When Carol's team is on here, it's going to be only veteran contacts when Carol's team's on here, and there'll be many more of them than there will be on this side, more than likely. Eventually this side's going to be the most, because there's going to be multiple students at every location. Right.
There's going to be thousands of them, and when that student gets hired by one of your employers, then the visibility is now you're going to get to see that contact as an employer contact.
Yep.
Right. So, good point. I think we still have some work to do in that regard.
My other question was this MSMA campaign. I'm not sure what that is. Did that come from something Carol sent over, or was that just supposed to be MSSA?
It should be, I would imagine, MSSA campaign. Robert, is that something? Is that something you recall?
Oh, I was just so the option set I was just taken from the previous solution. It could just be a typo. I can fix it right now.
Okay, yeah, MSSA campaign would be the right choice, right, Dan?
Yeah, I guess so. I just didn't know if that was something that was on one of Carol's slides, but I think MSSA campaign probably what it was meant to be.
Well, it could have been, but Microsoft Military Affairs, that might have been. I mean, that's what that would, right? That's what I would imagine that stands for. So
I would think so, but I'm assuming MSSA would be probably the correct, because MS would refer to Microsoft software. I don't think they'd refer to Microsoft as MS.
Okay. So MSSA.
So let's see, what else was there? Company accounts. I just had a few notes that I was going through in here.
Go back to accounts. Just click on the accounts if you would.
Really quickly, is this supposed to be companies who have hired, or is this?
Right. Are they an employer who's hired an MSSA grad? I mean, that's just
okay.
Right.
Okay, great.
Hi, you should be able to put your mouse over MSSA employer, and it'll have the question. The question should pop up. There it is.
Oh, great. How did you? That's great, Sarita, that you figured that out. The help text, I couldn't figure out how to do that, but it looks like you did that. Fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Beautiful.
I mean, that was it. It was pretty. It seems pretty straightforward. Those are just the only little things I ran into that I had questions about. But I think that primary, adding contacts and then it defaulting up to here, I don't know how we're gonna what the best approach is for that if the other team is adding contacts to it and it's kind of defaulting to employers.
Well, I don't know if John is still on. Well, I see he's on. I don't know if he's working on.
What was the question?
Some other stuff at Starbucks, working on his latte or something. But John, do you agree that because neither Dan's team or Carol's team are really going to see the other's menu, right, and have those options? Would it just be best to simply define the contact type that gets created by default based on the user?
I see what you're saying. So basically the contact type. Yeah, talk with Julie about that one. Write that down on your list so that basically in the background, we have to create a workflow that says every contact created by Dan and the appropriate members of that team automatically update the field of contact type to employer contact and vice versa for Carol's team. You want to jot that down as a workflow that needs to be done.
Okay.
But now, again, it's 6 of one, half does the other, because when you create a contact, it's not a lot of extra clicks to just check the box to say employer contact versus other contact, and you can make it a required field. And the reason I'm potentially suggesting that is if there's a lot of turnover between them, we're going to be having to deal with editing the workflows all the time, meaning turnover of employees on Carol's team or Dan's team. So
I think it's fine. I think it's fine to just have it be a required field rather than automatic. I think it should definitely be required, because otherwise, I'm anticipating the site managers are all going to have access to the veteran side, and then there's going to be 15 plus people adding stuff in here. And some of them I know will not pay attention to which one of those is checked unless it's required.
Would they ever have a reason to create an employer contact?
They shouldn't really be. They should be going through me to do that.
Okay. Yeah,
Because if
so
there are
maybe
being
maybe the solution to this, maybe the solution to this is if Dan is the user or anybody on Dan's team, the default contact type would be, I mean, you can always change it, but it should be required. I agree, but it kind of feels to me like it should just be the default.
You just need to make it required because it only does it on save, on create, where the form comes up. It's a static form, so when it presses save, when they press save or create, it will save it in the background. But once again, if people start turning over, we need to keep editing the workflow rules. So once again, I think we just need to make it a required field, and people will complete it as appropriate.
Okay. So just to be clear, I mean so every time you create a field, a contact on Dan's team, they're always going to check the veteran contact or the candidate contact type.
They're going to have to do that manually, and it'll be a required field on Carol's team too, because it's the same form, and they're going to have to put in veteran contact or whatever. I mean, it's going to be a required field. That's my point.
Okay. All right. So that's settled. Let's see. So Dan, do me a favor.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's a big deal. I think we're basically, because this is a demo environment, Dan's team is not going to see the veteran aspect, the veteran sub menu that we're seeing on the left here, and Carol's team is not going to see the employer's menu. So that'll eliminate some confusion. But this is just for demo purposes. So the production version of this thing is only going to show the what's underneath the employer heading.
Okay.
Right? Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to have training sites, right? Because that's under your purview. No. I'm sorry. Training sites. Do you have anything at all, Dan, to do with training sites? I guess that's the question.
So something that would be nice for me on training sites is to be able to track schedules, because there's a resume release date. There's periods where we start talking to partners for that site. So that was something that I was hoping at some point to be able to just say, hey, this site is hitting resume release on this date. These 5 sites are already within the resume release period but haven't graduated yet. So I don't know if that's something that can be tracked within here or not. And just where it's at now, something I noticed was just that education partner, this is linked to the employer accounts. So this would be one of the 2 colleges that we're partnered with.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's going to end up linking all up, but I mean, that's a pretty simple thing that we can set up and put in there, and it won't be changed.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe Dan, if you could go ahead and click on training sites. All right, you have already, and then these are the fields that and then you've got education partner, which is a drop down or a select option list.
Right.
Now I've made it a lookup. It doesn't have to be, but for whatever reason, if you want to have a separate account for the training site, I mean, why not, right? You might want to add some more information. But now, is that your education partner is always just one partner or multiple partners? That's the part I wasn't sure.
It's one. It's one of the 2 colleges we're partnered with right now.
Okay. All right. The site code, we can put that in there, and then the cohort would essentially be a sequence, right? Numerical sequence that would be attached to that site code. Is that your intention?
Yep.
Okay. We got an email.
Hey Dan, question for you. Is that numerical sequence, is that sequential? How is that generated? I mean, do you want it to be auto-generated, or is it like some algorithm that's too tough to auto-generate?
No, it's sequential. So we're on FC5 right now. It's Fort Carson's 5th cohort. it'll be FC6 next time.
So I guess the real question is, and we may not want to make it automated. I mean, we can, but the challenge is if people are maybe still adding some names into a Excel spreadsheet, then the sequence will all be off because they're not adding them here. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it's no problem. I was just curious for the sites here. There was that education partner, and then for the sites, and we have students. Is this going to be separated out by students for this current cohort, or is this going to have every student past and present?
Well, here's what I think it'll be. Basically, the default. My thought was the default would be current students, those currently enrolled or the most recently enrolled. For that training site. So that you can basically say with the resume release period, it's et cetera, but you just have a quick reference to the 15 or so students in there. It's not you don't want to put all the students because you're going to get 100 or more, right?
Right. Okay.
But
yeah, I clicked new when I was in student. So from contacts, when you create a student, that's when you're going to say this is what cohort they're in. You're not going to go to training site and then add a student from here, correct?
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, no. If you go ahead and click on the students, I don't even think you have the ability to create. It doesn't.
Totally fine. But if I went to,
it would be determined by cohort, right? So. Under Fort Carson, you'd basically get, list all of the students that are with FC5. So it'd be a related list, a grid view. And maybe once you have a populated item there, you could create a student, I suppose. I'm not real sure about that, but right. So that's something that'll have to be, I think for the next iteration is something you could kind of build because that's out of the scope of this one. Again, a lot of what we're showing you is really sort of like in anticipation of what you might need. It's more of a framework.
Right. Yeah, I was just going through it kind of like you said. I am a first-time user to this, so I'm just going through and looking at how I would go to the site, create a student. So I went to here, but it kicked me up to contacts, and then I created a candidate contact. In the summary, there's no site-specific information. And then if I go to MSSA, I can do cohort ID. So if I were to say Fort Carson 5, that's not going to link this person to Fort Carson.
Not until we basically do the configuration to make that possible.
Okay.
Right, because there's a fair amount of work to really get that all squared away, but the bones are in place.
This touch point is for employers.
Okay.
So any touch point.
Okay. All right. So it's for employers, and so let's see. That's a Robert thing. I may have put that in there. But Robert, you could just get rid of that.
On it right now.
All that really is are they just in this tracker and they get our emails for our newsletter, or are they in the hiring portal?
Oh, got it. Okay. All right. Good. So that's just for employer contacts. All right. Good.
If they're in the hiring portal, it's assumed that it's going to be they're on the tracker and in the portal, but that's specific to employers.
Okay. And then location preference, you got all the.
Yep, got all those.
Yeah.
You go on that. Mentor, so that's going to be back to all contacts, right?
Well,
mentors are going to be actually Microsoft employees.
Well, a mentor, remember the mentor, and this is only after they're hired.
Oh, okay.
So, in other words, all of your employers are required to have a mentor for the first 12 months. So I don't know if you want it there or not, but it's like I say, this is really more of a, we get rid of it if you don't if you don't think that's going to have any value.
I think it's great if I'm able to search that. If I'm able to say, hey, this same person mentors 10 of our graduates, how have they been doing, you know?
Yeah, by the way, is
Yeah,
this
and-
mentor a Microsoft employee? Or who are they?
Well, when they're in the class, and that's why I was asking, because if they're in the program, there's 10 to 12 Microsoft employees who mentor each one of our locations. But if this is for after they're out, because it's really that's more of a suggestion, but asking that they have a mentor team and the employee, the military, the veterans network, and the whole thing within the companies that we work with. But if they're a smaller company, it would just be a mentor.
Go ahead and fill that in for a second, and because it is a lookup field.
Here's where I'm going. So this is a lookup field to a contact, right? So now what we've done is now you've said, okay, we have employer contacts, we have veteran contacts, and now we have mentors. So do you really want to go down this road right now? And if you do, then no problem. Then you've got to add at the drop down to identify the type of contact it is.
Well,
actually, John, mentor, yeah.
John, it's more simple than that. The mentor in this case is always going to be an employer contact.
Okay, fair enough.
Right.
Then that's fine. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So contact type would be that. It's just really just a way of saying, because one of the requirements, or I guess as you said, it's a suggestion, Dan, but I know you asked the question, are you willing to provide a mentor to this veteran for the first 12 months?
Right.
And it would be nice to, just be able to know, okay, who that person is, and that you can contact them if you need to.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's see, one.
Now,
so then if I go to contacts.
There is also, Dan, in our program, we have like sponsor, and sponsor is the person who referred the veteran and usually has a vested interest of some sort in that veteran's progress. So we work with vet reps, and we work with VSOs and all kinds of people. And usually our veterans come to us through a sponsor. And so we like to have that related to the veteran. I don't know if that's something you guys would have any value, but that's another lookup field, and would probably be just contact of some sort.
Yeah. I mean, we don't necessarily have that. Most of the people are coming from TAPS or TRS when they hear about MSSA, or it's from a friend went through the program and said, hey, you should check this out.
Well, and that's dealt with in source. If you look down at the last field down there in this little block on the left, if you just click on source, go back to summary, and then source. There you go. Yeah. So that's really, I think, where rather than have a lookup person, you just basically say, okay, this was a TAP or program or what have you, and at least that way it gives you a little bit of lead source analysis, which of course you want to do at some point, if not ongoing.
Okay, and then so if we're defaulting mentor, so this is the new mentor I created from within that participant profile when I went to add mentor. So it created this, and it defaulted to a candidate profile.
Yeah. Well, that's another business rule, right, John? That anytime you create a mentor, the default should be,
the default should be to an employer contact, and it should be to an employer contact at that company. Well, actually, we don't know which company because they're a veteran record, so it should default to an employer rule, or to an employer contact. So you want to write that down as a constraint that needs to be set up.
That's a good
and
point.
Real quick, when I created that from veteran one, I created new mentor in the mentor box. This is new mentor. It automatically linked the mentor for the new mentor as veteran one, which is where I created it.
I'm not sure, but in general, I think we'd want to have a constraint that just says only pull up employer contacts as a lookup. but I'm not sure how mentor one. I wasn't looking at the screen. I apologize.
I was in this profile and I went into this MSSA page and created. So I just went here and went to new.
Are we on a? We're on a. What kind of contact are we on? I'm seeing the contact type blank at the top, on the top right.
Candidate is what I have here.
Yeah, just go ahead and click on there you go, right where it says select. Yeah. But again, that's not gonna determine the form that you're looking at. We still want to make that so that the contact type is determinative of the form you're looking at, and it's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Dan, what happened is this is a for what, yeah. I'm not sure how you got to veteran one, but in short, John, if you could jot that down, saying in the mentor field on the MSSA tab, we need to constrain that by all employer contacts.
And what I was doing is I was just in veteran one and under the mentor. See, I just did it. I created new, and then I created that new mentor. And that's what brought me over there. And once I did that, it defaulted to a candidate. So I'll put new mentor back in there.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that should always default to an employee records, not.
Yeah, and unless you created that that employer contact record prior to the lookup, and then in which case it already is an employer contact. But what John's saying is oftentimes you're going to create that record in this view, in this form. And when you do, then it's obviously the default has to be an employer contact.
Okay.
So new mentor, change the view to a contact, would you, Dan? Yeah. Okay, so this is the typical view of the contact, right? You got all the information. Yeah. Huh.
I'm just messing with these.
Is a veteran, yeah. Okay.
Actually, this is a contact. So these, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know for leads sourced for employers. This would probably be, internet search or website, newsletter, direct outreach, because this is the same stuff for the candidates.
Well, well, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's all the same, but we can add some things that would also, also be applicable to, any contact. I think the main thing here, this is a very, very rough cut. Where did you get them from? You could add some.
I'll be able to change these too, right, as I move forward and just say,
yeah.
Hey,
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's good. The functionality is all good. I'm just kind of picking through here and seeing anything that I notice that stands out, like I said. So, yeah, I mean, everything looks good other than just the little things we're noticing now.
Go to if you would. I just want to do something with the account, or go to accounts if you would. I did some things there, and then now down on the bottom, you'll see that go see where ABCD, all right, down there. Just go to S. Click on S. All right. Now this is your active accounts. Go ahead and click on all accounts or all active accounts. Yeah.
All active or all?
No, all accounts is fine. Now notice that we have the actual accounts here that you supplied us with. We were able to upload those. Go ahead and click on S, the S now. All right. I want you to go to sample code because that's the one where we've really done most of the the stuff, right? That's the only one in there that's kind of bogus. Yeah, sample co, right. I think that's the one where we can fully demonstrate the functionality. So you've got, I just want to make sure we got the right fields here. So the hiring portal user, right? I put that in there for account because if anybody in that account is a hiring portal user, I think we should just be able to sort of, you know, right? It's okay, that account, somebody in that account is a hiring portal user. I wasn't sure if that
Right.
pertained more to the account or to the contact. And I just figured, well, you know, so that's the thinking there.
In the past, it's been direct to the contact, but I think this is more valuable to know somebody in the company is, and then I could go look through and see who it is. You know, worst case. Because,
what you can do,
you know,
actually, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, you know, anybody I talk to is going to be a hiring portal user for the most part after we kind of have a discussion about the program. It's very rare that somebody's not, but coming into this position, a lot of this data is old stuff from people, you know, from a few years ago who heard about the program, and they, you know, a lot of it's like, hey, this company that we used to contract with spoke with them and they're interested in hiring, but they'll reach out to us when they're interested, versus anybody new I bring on, I try to make them a lot more active than that. So most of them are always.
Okay, good. Yeah, so click on the contacts tab, and you'll see. So in the general context, you'll see that. Okay. Well, I thought I had changed. You know, Sarita did some great work in this, and I thought I had added a column there for hiring portal user. Right, so you can see all the contacts, but you'll also see which of those contacts are the ones that qualify that account as a user.
Okay.
Right, so you can basically sort by that. So that should be visible. In fact, Sarita, if you want to do that, if you want to go in and just add that column into this view.
Yes,
Hey,
sure,
John,
no problem.
John,
Okay,
would it
great.
be valuable also in this view to show which one is the primary contact, so you could go directly to it if you wanted?
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. But that assumes that by checking the box in the contact view, it will automatically populate the summary. So if you go back to the summary, Dan, who is the primary contact is John Smith. But we're assuming that there's only one primary contact per account. Is that right, Dan? Is that really?
Yeah, there's always going to be one person that I usually interact with the most at a company. So they're usually the one that says, hey, here's the openings we're looking at. And most of their team members will send them stuff to get to me.
Okay, now, so keep that in mind and click on job postings if you would, because I had another, not epiphany, but another sort of thought. So you see over on the right, there's employer contact, right? Mm-hmm. So my thought is that, look, if you've got an opening for an IT manager, your employer contact might be the hiring manager or maybe the recruiter for IT people, but it may not be the same contact
right.
for all of the job postings. And you might want to know whom to talk to directly, mm-hmm. right? Given about that job thing, right? So that's why you've got two different primary kinds of contacts, one associated with the account and one associated with the job.
Okay, yeah. And that makes sense. A lot of times it is a different contact for the role, the opening.
So you find this as a useful way to think about this, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely in the job postings, especially for like the summary for the company. This is good. You know, if we do have a list here, if one stands out, I mean, it would be good if I'm looking through a list of 40 of them. But I think this is easy enough that I could say, okay, here's here's the person. For the job postings, it's definitely good to have the employer contact because it's going to be different recruiters most of the time. And I do.
Yes,
I'm
right.
still catching up from. I'm still catching up from a couple weeks of travel, so I do have a meeting at 1 o'clock Eastern coming up, and then
Okay.
I have a major meeting Wednesday at 1 Eastern. Are we able to, or excuse me, today's at 2. Can we shift to 2 o'clock by chance on Wednesday Eastern?
Now that's the day before the 4th. Is everybody available then?
This is Wednesday, the 3rd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm available.
Okay. Yeah, and I am too. Let me make sure here. Wait a minute. Hang on. Okay. Oh. All right.
And between now and then, anytime, if anything comes up that you'd like me to take a look at, feel free to just let me know, and I'll try to track that as closely as I can and stay on top of it. That way we can get as close to real-time feedback as possible.
Okay. Well, I'm going to change. I'm going to move our meeting to 2 o'clock Eastern time. That's 11 o'clock Pacific. And yeah, look, if that's fine. I think the main people are you, me, and John. Sarita, Robert, Daniel, Victor, if you guys can join, fantastic. But, I'll record it if you can. All right, so our same meeting, well, here, I'm just going to go ahead and send it to everybody. Okay, yeah, so I'm shifting it back an hour on Wednesday. And hopefully we'll have all of these things kind of tied up, or at least figure out a path to there. The question I have is for John, what do we need to do to move this to production once we're ready to pull the trigger on this?
Basically copying over the solution files, but before we do that, I want to make sure that we have all the forms laid out and the security of the forms, so when you're creating a contact record form or viewing a contact record, a veteran contact versus an employer contact, that's all taken care of. And I've already spoken with Julie about that, and she's going to assist you on that. So that's the thing that needs to be taken care of, I think, in my mind, right away.
Okay, great. Dan, I know you've got to run, but if our students want to stay on the line, I'm available. And
awesome. Well, thanks everyone for all the work you've put into this, and hopefully everyone can be on the call Wednesday and we can get through the portion of it.
Yeah, I think we're definitely in the home stretch. We got a couple of major things to do here, but glad this is working for you. If you have some time, go back through this and just make any notes that that pertain to tidying up.
Okay. Yeah, I will do.
Thanks, Dan.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. John, you're still on. Do you have any thoughts here that come
No,
out?
I think what needs to happen is I just need to go through it when I can concentrate, when I'm driving myself, to go through and see any kind of form or view modifications that look more aesthetically pleasing, and that may look more aesthetically pleasing. I'll qualify that and do that. So anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Well, as always, thanks for checking in. I just to make sure I've got some to-dos that I think we can handle, our team, but I have something to check in with Julie. And now, is that the same thing as you talked to her about? In other words, contact type defined by user was kind of my note here to check in with Julie.
We're getting rid of that one. That was the one where we're going to make contact type a required field upon record creation. We were not going to make that a business rule because then we're always going to be managing if there's any turnover that needs to happen. So we decided, so we don't have to do that one. What is required is how are we going to deal with the security on the forms so that if a Dan's team user comes up, they see the employer forms. If there's Carol's team look up, then they see the veteran forms, and that's specifically the contact forms. So we need to set up the appropriate security there on the forms, as well as some overall permissions on the forms too.
Well, and the forms, but also that to have the form that is displayed based on the designated contact type.
That is, yes. And the reason you're hearing me hesitate here is because I noticed here in your work through, you actually had two forms. You have a veteran form and you have an employer form. And I believe Julie had something else in mind, meaning she was going to display or not display certain tabs on the same form. I believe that that's the vision she had versus switching the form based upon contact type. So that's where I'm going to leave it up to her to and you to determine how you want to do that.
Well, in fact, Robert is in the process now of creating a third type of form, which would be the hybrid form or the all-inclusive that sort of cascades out to, yeah, the first tab would include everything that's common to either type, and then it would, basically have other stuff in tabs that depend on the type.
Yeah. So again, I would talk to Julie on how she wants to handle that one.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the work, Robert, that you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could add some info to that if anyone's interested. John, I know you probably have like work to do, but I could certainly speak to this general issue of how to display what information, which forms, and so on, based on contact type, users' permissions, and whether we want to do multiple forms or single form.
Yeah. So that's one. We've got a couple of constraints we need to have done when looking up records. I'm going to put together my list here, John, and then you can look it over to make sure that I haven't, and then add anything to your list. But I've got a few things, and I'll put it together as I go through the UI.
Okay. And I have some things, speaking of constraints, for example, creating a new job application when you're in a certain record that you'd want to, or for example, constrain the job opportunity, the job posting based on the employer that you're in. Right now you don't do it. It doesn't do that, and I'm just wondering if there's somebody who would like to tackle that. That is a Victor, or that's in Victor's area.
So that's one remove. So if you think about it, here's the challenge. You've got your job postings that are tied to employers, right? So when you create a job posting from the job posting tab, it automatically plugs in the employer's name, correct?
I believe so, but if you're creating a job application, right?
Correct.
It doesn't necessarily. It'll give you all of the, even if if you fill in the employer, right? You say, okay, with ABC company wants to, I'm going to apply this person ABC company, and I'm going to apply them to this job. It still gives you all the jobs for all the companies.
I will look at that. It shouldn't. But are you doing that from the veteran record, or are you doing that from the job posting record?
From neither, from the job application record.
So can you do that right now? Can you go to a job posting first?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So let's go to consultant. And so if we want to create a new application, right? So add new job application. So the job title already shows, which is great, but the employer should fill in.
No,
right?
so
Because,
I'll tell you why exactly it does not. Okay.
Okay.
In the relationships we set up the job posting is related to the employer.
That's correct.
The job applicant is related to the job title. It is not related to
the job application, through the job application, right? So it's really, right? So right now, well, yeah. Anyway, it is related to the job title, but only by way of the job application.
Correct. So once again, if you think about the cascading we did, we have a one-to-many from the employer and a one-to-many to the job postings. And then from the postings, we have a one-to-many for job applicants. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the job applicants do not have a direct connection to employers. They have a direct connection to job postings. They do not have a direct connection to employers because of the cascading, the way we set up the database structure.
Okay.
Okay, so it is not automatically going to fill in. When you create it off of the applicant, off the job posting will fit in, but it doesn't know which company. I mean, there might be some code we may be able to put in to do a search, but right now it's definitely not going to do that.
Okay. So if we have like, okay, so these postings, obviously these are associated with sample code, right? So this is sample code.
Correct.
And so all of these, by definition, these are sample code job postings, but consultant is a very common job title, obviously. So if we go to job posting, now this is still sample code and it's consultant, right? So we're still got these related. Now though, if we go to a new application, or if we go to applicant, we can see that there are applications here. And I guess this is the same thing that I did before. Yeah, right. It's right. We did. It was sample co, obviously, but now we've lost that.
It's because you're creating a new one. On the other ones you created, you created them manually.
Well, I guess though that if there was some way to write some code that says, hey, look, this consultant job at this company, sample co, right? In other words, this is a unique job title, and by definition, I mean, it's a unique job, I should say. By definition, it is associated with sample code. And so if there's some sort of code that says, we go back and say, okay, maybe it's based on the ID, or, and then it.
John, I hear what you're saying. This is Victor. It seems like so the employer field that you're looking at right now is a lookup field. When you go to add new, it's a lookup field. But I see exactly what you're saying. When you're in there might be another field that could be dropped in. I see what you're saying. It might be possible.
Play with it, but don't.
Yeah. It might be.
Go ahead.
No, I see what you're saying. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. John Kassar, I hear what you're saying as well. Something tells me that when you, depending on where you add that thing from, it may be available to you. So I have to look into that.
Yeah, look into it. Please don't, add more complexity. In other words, experiment with it first.
I'm very glad everything is working as well as it is now. I don't want anything to be affected. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, if you can crack that one, then this should be fantastic. Again, this is so much beyond the scope of this, but then again, if we can over deliver, great, you know, and learn at the same time. It's a win-win.
Show me again, John Reynolds, where you're doing that from, so I could just write it down in my notes. So you're going, where are you starting
Yeah,
from?
so let's say starting with Sample Co. and then saying, okay, how many job postings does this company have? So we got 2 dishwasher postings, but we have 2 because one is on hold. We've got 3 on hold and 3 open. It's the same position, but we've created 2 job openings because they differ in these key ways, right? So anyway, that's just a little note. Now we go to this job opening, right? And so far so good. Dishwasher at Sample Co. that is on hold. Okay, that's what uniquely defines this position, even though there's 3 openings, right, for this. And I don't see where openings. You know, we should add that field of number of openings on here. And then we go to, okay, we got the description, job details, we go to applications, and we say, oh, okay, we got these 3 people who have applied. We want to add one. So far, it's very clear that it's Sample Co. and it's dishwasher. All right, so we're saying, oh, we want the system to assume, to basically, you know, to know that, yeah, it's dishwasher, but it's also the dishwasher at Sample Co. It's this unique one. And what makes it unique, if we click on it, is that it is Sample Co. and it is right? That's a unique job. And so the system should know when we go to the record that is related to that and say create a new one, but it doesn't. We have to still, so if we go to Tesco, right, and obviously, so the veteran should be a lookup. Yeah, okay. So let's say Genghis Khan, and he applies on such and such a date. He's gotten an offer. The stage was changed on this date. And now we save it. Now, we should not have had to look that up, obviously. Right. So, but now we can go back to, now we go to Tesco and say, oh, okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Well, now we have oh, wait a minute. Oh, job applications. Okay, we have a job application, but it's a test. It's from Tesco, because this company has a dishwasher opening, and it's like confusing as hell. Anyway, it looks like, this is interesting. All right, so this job application, it says 3 job applications. I don't know if it was created 3 times or it's showing each stage change as a different record. Okay. Looks like, okay, well, okay, so John Smith, and then we've got job referrals. Yeah, it looks like he was referred to this job 4 times, but it should only show 1, and it should show the last stage. So he was hired, and it should only show this, right? Because if you go to the application itself, so veteran, okay, okay, job referrals.
What's job referrals?
Well, that's just really applications from the candidates, or from the veteran standpoint. It's really more of a referral, I guess. And maybe that's confusing. Maybe we could change it back to job applications. It's let's see here. So if we go to job applications and we go to John Smith, right? So yeah, it should be basically we should be able to see all of the different stage, right? So we should be able to, this, well, wait a minute, this is John Smith, it's not the application. Where do we see the actual application?
Right there.
That's.
So just double click on a line item, not on a specific name. Do not double click there. There you go.
Right here?
Yep. So now what's interesting is one thing you may wish to do, because that's confusing, is you may wish to add in the job and the employer on that view, on that previous view. Just go back to that view, John.
Okay.
So I think, Sarita, I think you were working on these. Right here, you see people's names, but you don't see what was the job and what was the company that they did. So you may wish to add this, because so this way you can.
Absolutely, and I think that actually that's a Victor thing, right? You're working on the applications?
Yeah, that looks like my thing. So from the employer's job applications, default.
No, this is the overall job applications. This is the native lookup for applications.
Yeah. So we want to have
this
on.
Is the view. This is the view, right? The main view. And John's right. It should have the employer and the job name, job title on this.
And if you click on employer, it'll go to the employer account. If you click on the job title, it'll go to the jobs.
Yeah, so I mean, this is all activity relating to, hiring of veterans by, the hiring process, regardless, right? So you can basically click on stage or order and say, okay, these have applied. Here's somebody who got hired. This
so
is
if you
when they got
on,
hired.
double click on one of the line items, and there you are. So you can see this job application for Jane Doe, where they are in the process.
Right, you can see that they applied in April, right? So this always stays the same, and you can do some analysis here. Basically, okay, it was like 3 months to hire.
You know what? One more thing you should do here, which I just noticed here, you should add in a field for hire date.
Okay, well, that's pretty much what this is supposed to be.
But but there could be two different things. When someone actually went in and changed the date, that's one. When someone actually, the hire date may be two different. They're going to be two different dates, because you're assuming that people are changing the date the day that they get hired, which is not the right assumption, is my point.
Oh, okay, two different. Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah, so today they made them hired, but they're not going to hire them for 2 weeks, let's say.
Or someone hasn't gone in and updated the system for 3 months.
Yeah.
That's the stage change date, which should have 3 months from today, as opposed to the guy who started working, last week. That's my point. They're two different dates.
Yeah. So Victor, can you do that? Can you just? That's a good point. Change it to date hired, because that's a really, really important date that goes to, for example, following up. You got the mentor for 12 months. You want to have that lookup field, that related field, and you'll want to know when to follow up based on the hire date.
And more importantly, they may want to have a report saying, show me everyone that's got hired between this date and this date. So you have a field to do that.
Right. A number of reasons for why that's important. Okay. Yeah. So Victor, if you could do that.
Yep. Hired job. Just hired date. Got it.
Hire date or date hired. Maybe got date applied there, and then maybe just
date hired. Copy. Date.
And obviously that's going to be empty in most cases, but I mean, it's maybe go to application, interview, offer, whatever, but not always to hire. So it's not always going to be filled in. All right. Anybody else? I think you guys did some good work here, and hopefully you're pretty clear
Agreed.
about what.
A lot of good work there. We're
Yeah.
close.
We are.
Hey, when do you want these? Do they need to be done by Wednesday morning, or can we? What's the how hot are these things? Probably could get them done by Wednesday, but just curious when you absolutely want them done by, John Reynolds.
Well, I don't see any reason. Most of the stuff is really, I wouldn't say cosmetic. I mean, I think you all pretty much know what needs to be done, and I definitely would like to have something pretty darn close to production on Wednesday.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Is that for the contact form too?
I'm sorry?
Is that for the contact form too? There's I kind of want to talk about that. There's a few different ways to skin that cat, so to speak. I feel like we haven't really picked one just yet, unless we're going to talk to Julie before Wednesday. Because and I sort of implemented the single form solution where you hide a tab based on user role. I did implement that in the trial version, right? I started to mess around with it this weekend, John, but you saw it caused some issues. So I kind of just stopped that, left it in the trial environment. So
I'm happy to talk about it if we could. I think that's a pretty important thing. If in fact we do go this direction, then we're going to want to really focus on this. I have time, and if nobody else has anything more burning, I'll give you a chance to weigh in. But otherwise, why don't we go to this issue?
okay, cool.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want the screen, Robert, or do you? This is.
Yeah, you can make me presenter. I can. Let me
All right.
pull up some stuff here. But while I'm doing that, just want to kind of get a concise explanation of the issue. And as I was working this weekend, it sort of compounded. Right, because we have employer contacts, veteran contacts, but then we have sponsors and mentors, right? So there's two more contact types essentially, and
No,
there's
hang on a second. We're not talking about different contact types, really. I don't think we need to. So mentors, for example, are by definition employer contacts, right? They're just
okay.
a different. They have a different role, but they're not a different type.
Okay, that's a relief. So it's essentially just a checkbox on the employer form, whether they're a mentor or a sponsor or both. Okay.
Not a checkbox. It's essentially the mentor is just going to be a lookup from the veteran record.
Okay, and it would just tie it to contact types. Okay, all right, that makes sense. So there would be no need to put in. Okay, no, that makes sense.
No. There's two types of contacts. I mean, in essence, if you want to look at it this way, you've got candidates, you've got veteran candidates or students or whatever, and you've got every other kind of candidate or contact.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I wasn't sure what mentor, if that was going to be someone who was like working with the veteran through some third party that wasn't an employer, and the same with sponsor for. I didn't know if they were going to be their own separate thing. So yeah, no, that certainly simplifies it. Okay.
Okay.
So the LinkedIn tab, right? Everyone's seen that, and you can see it shows up on the veteran contact form, but not the employer contact form. And kind of how that's done is because it's an integration. It's like the LinkedIn Sales Navigator is, from what I've read. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a package that can be integrated into an existing Dynamics 365 application. This sales primarily. So, like, I spent some time figuring out how that solution, because it's a separate solution, was hiding the tab, right? Like why it was showing up on some but not others. And it's done with, from what I can tell, JavaScript. So that is a bit outside the scope, right? Of, I mean, the courses I took, and it's, I feel like it's something I can implement, but I'm not. When you do something like that, I feel like there should be testing, additional testing, review, to make sure that it won't really break anything, right? Like the LinkedIn Sales Navigator, the way it hides tabs, I'm certain that because it's kind of a Microsoft product, right, that there was lots of work put into it, review, and so on. Let me bring up my app here, and I can kind of show what I was doing. So what it is, they're events that kind of run when something happens. Form loads, a box is changed, and that's done.
Are you doing this in a demo environment here? Just so I understand, Robert.
Yeah. This isn't the sandbox. Because this is kind of a bit not volatile, but I don't want to break anything, right?
No, that's fine. Well, I actually installed the LinkedIn Sales Navigator into the sandbox, but that's fine. Maybe it's not appearing, but yeah.
It is. It's not appearing everywhere. It's on the forms. Like if you go to edit certain forms, the LinkedIn Sales Navigator will show up on like the edit view, but when you run the app, you don't see it, right? So, and from what I understand, that's kind of something that we're trying to do with the contact forms. If
And
it's
contact and the employer.
essentially it's one form, but depending on whether it's a candidate or an employer contact, different tabs will be displayed, and there will only be one form. And it's essentially the way LinkedIn does that is whether it's activated, essentially. And I went through the documentation you sent, and it seems like there's permissions outside of the 365 permissions that can be done. It said something about adding seats. I'm not familiar with that terminology, so I don't want to really speak to it, but it seemed functionally to be similar to permissions in 365. So, and like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the navigator, some people will see it, some people won't, based on these seats that are given or not given. So, well, I was trying to implement that for contacts, and I did in a limited capacity. But it's something that can be expanded, and there's a few different ways to do it. Let me show the actual kind of creation view. But it'll be based on the user role, so you can base it on kind of the user role that's assigned in the security setting. You do it based on teams, again, for security settings. But you can also do it using business rules, which is like a very clunky solution. It's a little more, yeah, it's a low code, no code solution, or it's a low code solution, but it's clunky. It's a lot of work. You have to do it for every single field on every tab. Let me see here. Oh, I have to go to the right environment here. So, but from what I can tell, and from what I've been researching, this isn't a unique issue, and it seems to be the primary solution is implement JavaScript to basically hide the tab. And so to avoid that is why I came up
Well,
with
I'm not necessarily sure on that. Okay, and I know that you've done some homework. Do me a favor, go to our production copy here just for a moment, and go to a form view. And obviously you've been playing around with Power Apps. So if you let's see here. So if you will notice, scroll down so you get to one of the other tabs. Okay, so for example, in one of these other tabs here, I'm not sure, but look at the top on the ribbon. There are some form properties.
Yeah, okay. This is the form itself.
Correct. So this is the overall form. So this happens to be the candidate form. So go to the display there. There are some things here. No. Actually, excuse me. Press cancel. Sorry, press cancel. Enable security roles. Okay. So basically, this form, the candidate form, should be available to everyone on Carol's team, which I don't know who those users are, right? And then when you go to Dan's team, the form, so in other words, we'll create a security role just for Carol's team. And then she will be able to see this, but she will not have access to the employer contacts and vice versa. So we haven't created profiles yet for these. So I just want to let you know, and by the way, in these enabling security roles, you have the ability, as you put in LinkedIn, to show LinkedIn or not, because essentially the LinkedIn is just another tab within the security role, or within the form. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Up until that last point. So
Okay. So for example, if we have the LinkedIn tab on a employer contact, then the security role for the employer contact form for Dan's group will show that. If someone else tries to access like a candidate record that does not have the LinkedIn tab, it will not show up. So basically, we're controlling the entire form with or without the LinkedIn tabs by the security role. Does that make sense?
So, okay, I'm going to explain the way I understand it, and we'll kind of see where it lines up. The tab, right? LinkedIn Sales Navigator tab. This is the employer contact form. And you can see the LinkedIn Sales Navigator tab is here, and we also have it on the candidate contact form. However, when we run the actual app, it only appears on the candidate form. Now, we haven't implemented security roles yet, though. So how the LinkedIn Navigator solution is doing that is based on kind of something within that solution, not so much within our solution.
I understand, and I see what you're saying, and I need to take a little bit of a closer look, kind of offline, just doing my own homework here a little bit.
Yeah, see, so and the way I found that LinkedIn does this is, let me see, go back to here. So Because the security roles are tied to forms, which is why I originally was creating a candidate form and an employer form, right? Because then when, for example, Dan opens the app, he'll only see the employer form. And then we can tailor views as well. If Carol opens the app, she'll only see the candidate form. So, but the way kind of it's being done for this, and again, this is an out of the box solution, right? So like Microsoft kind of created it, is this guy right here. And we can actually sort of see it. We can break it out more, but no real sense in doing this. But this part here, see where it says form onload function, and it's saying this is kind of like Greek to a lot of people, and even me, I don't completely understand it, which is why I haven't really worked on it in the production environment or even the sandbox environment, right? But essentially, this guy here is feature enabled null, right? So essentially, if the feature is enabled, it'll show. If it won't, if it isn't, it won't, because it just basically kicks out automatically. But that seems to be, from what I've researched, seems to be the way a single form solution is implemented. And we can, like I said, I did it on a kind of a limited scale with the trial environment. And I restricted it based on the security roles. So, for example, if someone with a knowledge manager role logs in, they won't see the military tab. However, if a system administrator logs in, they will see that tab. And let me see if I actually have, see test tab details. Okay, so I took it out, but I had a button here where you could basically click and it would show the tab or hide the tab if you clicked it. But this tab here, it's going to be based on certain security roles, and it's not a low code, no code solution, really. It's just it's a code solution. So that brings up a lot of considerations. And it seems like the multi-form kind of restricting what form someone sees and then what views they see based on security role will be the low code, no code solution. So it's kind of a decision point of which one should be implemented.
Right. So I need to play with this a little bit myself. I need to interact with Julie a little bit about all this, and I'm going to let her take the lead on a few of this stuff, on a few of these things as well. So, but I need to highlight exactly what's required here on a few things, not just this.
So John and everybody, Julie has confirmed that she will join us on Wednesday's meeting at 11 Pacific
But I
time.
need to give her a brain dump of everything. Her and I have been emailing on this morning already.
Right. No, I agree. I would love to have this at least kind of identified before maybe even mostly solved by Wednesday. But she will be joining us too. So yeah, thanks for doing that, John. Appreciate it. Okay.
So Robert, just to let you know, I hear what you're saying, and I just need to probably digest this and kind of, while I'm not on the phone with people, is just kind of think this through, because this takes a little more mental power and time than just on the phone with you. I hope you understand.
Oh yeah, no, I spent most of Saturday learning this stuff. But honestly, this is the kind of stuff I would do if someone's not paying me to do something else, so I don't mind. But the it's the decision point, so to speak, is do we want a low code, no code solution, which from what I gather would be multiple forms, or do we want a single form solution, which would involve code?
Yep. I get it. No. It's you've hit the nail on the head in terms of exactly the issue that I wanted to connect with Julie about and that she's asking me for more details on.
Okay,
Good.
awesome.
And that was Julie's. That basically is the path Julie wanted to take from the get-go. So she'll have I'm sure some good input.
Yeah, she mentioned also, John, if you recall, adding business units, right? So if Carol and Dan are kind of at different organizations or companies, then we can do that. Otherwise, we can just implement teams within one organization. But that's it. That's if we go with well, either way will involve permissions. But I guess the key point is low code, no code solution or code solution.
And I have one quick thing for John, the data.
I haven't looked at that yet, John.
Okay, but that's just a reminder, about the context, right? So accounts, no problem. Contacts, different story.
Yep.
Yeah, and then Robert, is there some way you can make visible the combined form for contacts? So you can toggle back and forth and see what that looks like in actuality. I'm not sure how that happens, but if you could do that.
So if we have just one form, what someone would see would be based on their role, right? So
all I'm saying is, can you make it so that we can play with it? I understand. I understand how both approaches would work, or that we're still sort of looking to do both approaches. I just want to make sure that we can, essentially play with it here in the user environment. Right now, the only two forms available.
Yeah, I got you. Hold on, let me jump back in the sandbox here. Okay, so I renamed this guy. This one has the old fields on it though. I haven't updated the fields. So just FYI. But yeah, I can include this in the app, like if you run it. But this is it. Like you'll see the this is the candidate form.
Yeah, just as an option, right? Just make it consolidated or whatever you called it is fine. And then we can just sort of compare in this development environment.
Okay, so yeah, this form, it'll have like all the the common fields, the names, addresses, emails. Then it'll have a military tab, MSSA tab, and then I guess throw in it'll have everything, right? Basically.
No, I've seen the way you've laid it out. Yeah, I can't access it here in the user view is all.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't enable it. It's kind of still needs some work. I didn't want you presenting that to Dan. It would have confused me.
It's just for me, maybe me and you for right now, just so we can kind of see how it might look to Dan once we're ready to show it to him and Julie and everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And if you want, I can implement a small script to where you'll be able to hide or show the military tab if you change the contact type. But the contact, but the contact type option, right? Because a lot of this is going to depend on what the user's role is. Unless there's some kind of super user or highest level user who will need to switch between both types. And even then, I think the contact type should be about the value of that field should be based on either what form you pull up or who the user is, not really allow someone to pick a type. Does that make sense? Because and let me just make sure, because I understand, because you were saying it would change what's on the form based on the type you select. Doable, but that's again a fair amount of work. I think kind of the reverse approach, that field depends on the form you pick, is just a more elegant solution.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm just saying if you want to go, let's say, to a contact, right, an employer contact who was a used to be a student, and you just want to look at the military record of that student. And in order to do that, you just temporarily switch the view. That shouldn't change the contact type. The contact type is still now an employer contact. It's not now all of a sudden a candidate record type. You're just simply looking at different information. You're using the form to look at different information about that contact, right? So it doesn't really change the type of contact, which is permanently changed now to employer. That's all.
I think, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think that would be more about the views, right? Because right now we're like, at least I've been focusing on the input side, the forms, and kind of what someone sees when they sit down to add a contact, right? Now, what I kind of pointed out, when you are looking at a specific contact, you can put a different form. It's sort of like changing the overlay. So it seems like if someone does have where it becomes an issue is if because we have kind of two separate users that aren't supposed to see what the other user can see, that creates some challenges. Certainly, let me write this down because I think it's certainly doable. But when there's at some point someone's a student and they become an employer, someone will have to manually make some changes to that contact, right? And I think at that point, and then when someone goes to look at that contact, what information they're presented with, whether they see their employer information or they can see also their military history if they're an employer contact. Yeah, it's doable. I mean, my immediate solution is like using code, because with that you can do almost everything. But
yeah.
The more, yeah.
Play with it. I really I really admire your and applaud your initiative on this. Play around with it. Make sure you do any experimentation outside of the sandbox, and then once you've got something that works, then we can bring it in.
Okay, yeah, well, look, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm available. I'm available most of the day today if you need to reach me, and we'll have some back office communications until between now and Wednesday. But we'll definitely see each other on Wednesday and hopefully have something that's pretty buttoned up.
Okay, so I mean, I think at this point, before I start doing anything, I guess we're gonna want Julie to weigh in, because I don't know. It's labor intensive if I create both solutions, right? Like, oh, here, So just in the interest of time, I can do either solution, but it'd probably be better to be like, okay, this is a solution we want, and then implement it.
Right. Okay. I don't know, John. I see you're still on. Are you going to talk to Julie about this, or do you want me to? Because I know we're both going to talk to Julie.
I'm going to send her details of what about the form strategy and about the permissions and all of that, as well as the open issues, and then you can add on to that as you see fit in speaking with Julie. But I know exactly what needs to be done and how to explain things to her technically.
Okay, well, copy me, of course, on that to Julie, and then if I think of anything else, I'll add it in. But I think that's a good list.
Right.
Yeah, and then she knows we're meeting on Wednesday, so hopefully she'll get back to us in time for us to actually do something. But Robert, is that what John's going to ask Julie? That pretty much takes care of what you are interested in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Once the answer's given, then I can start working on implementing the solution.
Beautiful. Good stuff. All right. Well, things pretty much identified. So good. Well, look, thanks, guys. I'm going to jump unless you've got other burning issues.
I'm good for now. I'll you guys, whoever gets an answer, just shoot me an email and I'll start working. Otherwise, I'll talk to you guys Wednesday.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care.